Quite possibly the most divisive and brain-rotted arc I've had the pleasure of reading weekly in manga, the Shinjuku Showdown has come to a close after a long, drawn-out battle against the strongest sorcerer in history. When running, it seemed every single week there was a new complaint thrown its way regarding its monotony and repetitiveness. In this video, I'm going to take a look back at the final arc of JJK and how it holds up as a complete narrative. The arc kicks off with the 200% hollow purple fired by Gojo, but not before we get closure to character arcs for Gekuganji and Ajichi, with Gekuganji loosening his hold on his old ways, which is then pointed out by Gojo, likely having been spurred on by his execution of Yaga. As for Ajichi, he feels a burden for being so powerless and cowardly, riding on him since Shibuya. But here, with words from Gojo to coax him forwards, he aids in the preparation, putting his heart on the line. Along with the dance from Utahime, these come together to allow Gojo's strongest attack, immediately catching Sukuna off guard, which marks the true start to this showdown that will span the next 40 chapters. Gojo and Sukuna's fight starts off the first leg of this bout. The fight is largely fast-paced, punchy and tactical. This is a clash on the largest scale that we've seen in the series thus far, from the opening 200% hollow purple to the off-screen world-ending slash from Sukuna. The constant evolution from both characters holds onto the perspective here. Gege also utilises the rest of the anti-Sukuna squad to convey the extremities on show here, which is one of my only critiques of the start of this arc. Reading this fight in one batch does make this feeling less extreme, but it is still there. When you have the two strongest characters going at it, bringing each other to their limits and making tactical plays that leave both of them looking stunned at points, the cutting away does feel jarring. Though that's only a compliment of how great the actual fighting is, and it's not as if these cutaways don't have value in isolation. It perfectly sets up the characters that we will soon be following, and their individual dynamics. Higuruma being direct yet confident, Kashimo being boastful, and Yuji being naive yet experienced. Another couple beneficial aspects are the changing of dynamics, use of location, and the character on show. The two quip back and forth multiple times, whilst never letting their guards down. Gojo is still the ever-confident cocky character he's always been, while Sukuna is much of the same, constantly overexerting his ego whilst attempting to gain the upper hand. Regarding location, the fighters constantly use their surrounding to their advantage, whether that be flying through diced buildings, throwing Sukuna into his domain shrine, Gojo flying off of a traffic light, or Gojo literally using his surroundings to land a surprise hit on Sukuna from behind with red. Their environment is constantly changing, and it makes the fight feel dynamic and alive. Tension is also brought to the forefront with Sukuna's shifting of domain and, most prominently, the turning of Maharaga's wheel. The reactions from characters in the watch party shows the stakes of this in-universe as is. The adaptation means defeat for Gojo, and the stakes of this are felt as the bout continues, with the tables constantly being turned in either player's favour. The writing of the scenes also intertwine with the past and the rest of the story, with Gojo wearing the clothes of the man who changed his life, thinking back to Toji throughout his fight, and how he hadn't been pushed this hard since then, which is always nice to see. But of course, with a tactical finish to the fight by Gojo, we all know how this ends. When reading, the airport chapter is even more jarring, but almost in a melancholic way. That may just be because I was expecting it this time around, but it does act as a nice send-off for Gojo's character, tying his past and present all together. His last words being how no sorcerer dies without regrets is a beautiful bookend to his character. Though that's only the first act of this story arc, with what follows only being more divisive and more varied. The quick jump to Kashimo entering does make the fight feel a lot more frantic and fast paced when reading it in a batch. Another aspect that is more apparent in this shift when reading it all at once is the difference in ability. As soon as the Sukuna squad step foot onto the battlefield, especially Kashimo, there is no real sense of tactical prowess, and whereas Gojo had to think about every single move he made, there's no such thoughts with Kashimo, which inevitably spell his defeat, which is again a lot easier to see coming reading it in this way. Though, something that does still feel a little bit jarring to read is the change to the Foolish Survivor mini-arc the moment Yuji and Higuruma enter the battlefield. Alone, Foolish Survivor is an incredibly creative fight and is a blast to read. You can tell that Gege was enjoying every single page due to how limitless Takuba's abilities are. This is all done whilst intertwining a melancholic feeling and comedic elements. At first glance, seeing Kenjaku being taken out in this way can leave a sour taste in the mouth, but when you think about his character and the want to always have fun, no matter what form that may take, having his death in part be due to Takuba is fitting. The characterization of Takuba throughout this fight is also really well done. His character almost feels like the other half to Kenjaku's, always wanting a partner and to make the final person in the crowd laugh. It makes sense as to why he begins tearing up in their final show, though as Akotsu sneaks in, slashing Kenjaku's head off and dealing the final blow, we cut back to what will be the remainder of the fight against Sukuna. The first thing I wanted to look back on here was the Uraume and Hakari fight. This brought up a lot of discussion upon its conclusion, with none of it actually being shown to us. And yes, I agree, it is a shame we never got to actually see it. We saw the aftermath and the beginning of it whilst not seeing the in-between. This wouldn't have been as much of a shame if it wasn't for how cool Hakari's abilities are, and how much I would have loved to see them in another context outside of Kashimo's fight. Though, at the very least, it does make you feel as if there is a lot going on, and that the battlefield is larger than just what is happening with Sukuna. Other than that, there isn't all that much to say on this front, as unfortunately, there wasn't much shown to us. Riding this brief wave of missed opportunities, Sukuna's past is another aspect that was never outright shown to us. There were many fans clamouring for a full Heian flashback, though this never happened. To play devil's advocate on this take though, Sukuna's past is pretty much spelled out for us throughout this fight, through conversations he has with others or thoughts to himself. For instance, when fighting Kashimo, he exclaims how he was an unwanted wretch who rose up to defeat every single powerful foe that came his way. We see this briefly, in particularly the Uraume fight before this arc, with Sukuna being all-powerful and almost worshipped, though it would have been a lot nicer to actually see it extended. Sukuna's character is largely one that is shown to us through his inner thoughts and interactions with others. He's a deeper villain than what is presented on the surface. But what is shown to us was a lot of Sukuna fights. Reading it back to back almost gave me the same feeling as, spoilers for Demon Slayer here, Muzan versus the Demon Slayer Corps. Fighters get knocked out, swing back, rinse and repeat, but whereas week to week this felt monotonous, reading in one go makes it feel desperate and incredibly tense. As is also now well known, there is genuine stakes to this arc too. Characters do die, and whilst Nobu as a Megami survival had been labelled cheap by the fanbase, we did still see the deaths of Gojo, Kashimo, Higuruma, Choso, Uraume, Takaba, Kenjaku, and possibly Yuta. What's more, none of these deaths except for Uraume happen without the character going through some types of development or fulfillment to their arc. Of course, this happens to varying degrees. Kashimo's character arc is nowhere near as palpable as Takaba or Choso, but it is still there. Another distinct difference I noticed when reading weekly compared to the completed product is that the eventual defeat of Sukuna doesn't feel as rushed. Reading weekly almost makes it feel as if he just keels over for the sake of it.
Keel over and die.
But through the fight you do begin to see his cursed energy, technique and genuine fighting ability take its toll. Going from the newly incarnated Sukuna to the Sukuna we see eat a feast of black flashes from Yuji, there is a difference in the feeling created. There is a whole lot more to this arc than what I've outlined here, with individual character moments and dialogue that stick out, but for now, this has been my look back and overall review of the final arc of JJK, an imperfect thrill ride that fits contently within the universe provided. I'd overall give it an 8 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you tuning in the future.
The nights are restless, but our love is endless. As long as there's hope, the flowers blossom. The sun is glowing, so we'll keep the love flowing. As long as there's hope, the flowers